But it is 2 p.m, so I'm going to hand over to the wonderful Wendy and Will to get started with today's session.
Lovely, thank you very much, Cass. So as Cass said, today's going to be a bit more of a just conversational / interview format. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see both myself and Wendy, hopefully, and we'll just get cracking. So yeah, lovely to meet everyone. I'm Will, Business Development Manager at Thrive, but today is certainly not about me. We're here to pick the brains of Wendy Elliott. So Wendy, do you want to sort of introduce yourself and sort of where you come from?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Will. So I'm a Learning and Development Manager for Elior UK, who are a contract catering organisation with representation right across the country in a number of different sectors. And been with them for a fair few years now, worked in the Learning and Development team since 2012.
2012. Is that Elior since 2012?
Oh, Elior a lot longer, actually, Will. I'm not going to tell you how many years. Give my age away, but yeah, no, a number of years with the organisation, and I've been fortunate to have given lots of opportunities to grow and develop and take on different roles. So I had an operational background before I moved into the learning and development team, and yeah, it's been good all my life in the hospitality industry as well, which I'm very proud of and quite passionate about.
Lovely, very nice. So we're here today, as everyone knows, to sort of have a chat about how you're sort of transforming the way that your leaders are accessing sort of digital learning within the organization. So we, I don't know the exact date, but we started talking, I think it was either late 2019, early 2020, thereabouts, about our Thrive Learning Experience platform. So at that point, you didn't really have anything in place in terms of sort of a learning platform or an area where your learners could sort of learn and grow and develop themselves. So yeah, tell us a little bit about where you were in that position and maybe why you started to look out elsewhere for other stuff.
Yeah, so you're quite right, Will. At the time, the model we were operating inside Elior was that more traditional academy model. So we had a central suite of face-to-face events. We would produce a quarterly calendar. And the learning and development team would typically be traversing across the UK to various venues, offering people that happen to be working in the geographic the opportunity to join into this particular programme. And we didn't have anything of our own as far as a learning management system was concerned. We had no digital learning whatsoever. We've got various communication platforms inside the organisation, but nothing that we typically house any form of e-learning on. So it was a big leap of faith for us. But we also knew we needed to do it because we were starting to see dwindling numbers attending the face-to-face events, which I think reflects how we were changing as an organisation and a business and becoming much more labour efficient. But also I think it reflected the fact that people don't necessarily want to go and sit in a classroom for a whole day now. I know attention spans wander, and sometimes I can't remember what I have for breakfast at about 5 p.m. So that whole being able to retain a full day's worth of information was getting to the point where we realised we needed to be different and we needed to do something different. So that's kind of what made the decision for us to start to talk to learning platform providers. We recognised that if we were going to move, we needed to move in that direction. And so we started to have a look at what it was that we wanted to achieve and why we needed to go down that particular road.
Lovely. And this was actually, our conversation started all before the pandemic happened.
It really did, yeah, absolutely.
So I think you'd already highlighted it.
Yeah, we were chatting, you're right, it was back end of 2019, and I think you were probably the last place I came to before lockdown in March of 2020 was to the Nottingham offices to meet with yourself and chat to some of the team. So that all happened prior to March 2020 when everything was shut down and furlough arrived.
And in terms of for the folks on the call, so you weren't looking to straight away replace or provide a platform for everyone within Elior, because I think you thought it would be sort of quite a big transformation.
Yeah.
So you sort of targeted a particular area and the focus of what you wanted this platform to be, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. I think typically the audience that we have encountered and the audience that we've worked with have been those managers in our sites. So we operate in a number of different outlets right across the UK, and our managerial spectrum is very broad, from multi-site managers in really big manufacturing outlets or stadia type businesses, through to 1 and 2 man units in much smaller type establishments, and anything in between, really. So we've got a really broad spectrum of managerial roles, but they would all typically have been the people that we would have seen from a face-to-face perspective. So what we were trying to do was widen the opportunity for people to access those types of learning solutions, but at the same time acknowledging that there are a broad spectrum of them and we need to try to encompass something that fits all sizes. But we also were minded of what I would determine as e-learning fatigue. As an incredibly regulated industry with an awful lot of compliance learning, we have a third-party provider that houses our compliance e-learning, and there's a lot of fatigue that sits around that. So you are looking for something that's going to make a real seismic difference in terms of what their experience is going to be all about.
Interesting. So you targeted that you actually wanted to make a change. You had an idea of who you wanted to target that change at and who would be receptible to that change. And then you have to sort of reach out to suppliers. So for those that are on the call that may have never been through an RFP process before, or may never have had to reach out to suppliers, or might want to do it in the future, what's that like? How did you go about sort of finding those providers and selecting them, for example?
Do you know, we did an awful lot of research, Will, and I'll be really honest with you. A lot of it came from, I was pretty clear from the outset that we wanted an LXP. We were very aware of the fatigue in the organisation around an LMS approach. So we wanted LXP because of its difference, because of its differential, its social interaction. So it was clear from the outset that the companies we wanted to talk to were LXP providers. And I am aware that there are some LMS that look like an LXP, but they're not. So we basically we did a lot of research. There's a lot of walking involved. I did World of Learning and all those types of environments. So social media. You're looking at LinkedIn and you're looking at some of the bigger organisations that are shouting about their successes and talking about that. Even right into Learning Technologies, the last face-to-face at the very early part of 2020. So we were, and basically all we did was put together an outline of, this is what we want to achieve. We are new to the market. We don't have anything that we're transitioning from. We want to know about your organisation, how you approach companies such as ourselves. What does it look like for us? Can you give us some live examples of where you've taken organisations from nothing through to a full adoption of a platform? And can you also give us examples of organisations and industries that are a little bit alike ours, where we've got a very dispersed population? You know, we have a couple of head offices, but the vast majority of our colleagues work in multiple locations right across the UK. So they're very dispersed. And what does that look like? And that's really how we did it. And then we just issued the instructions out to those that we wanted to talk to and invited them to come along and show us what they could do. And we took it from there, really. So more about, actually, this is what we want to achieve. How are we going to get you to show us what you can do, basically?
Yeah. And in terms of sort of the people that were managing sort of that process, was it just you that was doing it, or did you have sort of like a team around you?
Yeah, there was a team around us. We'd got myself from the learning and development team. There were a couple of us from the learning and development team. We involved HR from an HR perspective, but also from an HR systems perspective. And then we also involved someone from the IT department, mainly because there's all sorts. There's always a technical word that I don't understand.
I always want to know everything that's going on.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I get it. They're protecting the network, and they want to make sure we go and do isn't going to conflict with anything else. Completely understand that. So that was the core project team that started to talk to those providers in January, February, March of 2020.
Lovely. So you've gone through this whole RFP process, and lo and behold, because we're here today, you chose Thrive, which we're very happy about. Sort of the RFP process was a little bit broken up, wasn't it? Because it was right in the middle of the pandemic. So we started conversations, pandemic hit. Obviously, in the hospitality sector, it was hit very hard. So everyone was sort of very patient in everything that was going on. But yeah, eventually you chose Thrive, which was brilliant. And we managed to go through into our implementation process. And at that point, we had to adapt very quickly because before the pandemic, a lot of our implementation process and the workshops that we ran were face to face. So we adapted that, and you sort of started going on through this implementation process. So yeah, again, for everyone on the call, what was that like? Again, you're very used to face training, everything like that. What was it like in the pandemic?
It was great, actually. I have to be honest. I think, like a lot of people, you guys had adapted really well and really quickly. And if I don't, you don't know what you don't know, do you? So we did all of your implementations virtually, but they were really powerful and they were really, really easy for us to take on board and work with. I think because we came from nothing, we were having to build from scratch. We weren't migrating anything from anywhere else. So it really was complete greenfield stuff. And your process was incredibly well organized. Up front, we knew what the workshops were going to be about. You'd identified who needed to be involved from a stakeholder perspective, how long they were going to take. And I think fairly early doors, we got them all in the calendar. So we, in our team, in my team at this end, and the HR guys that were helping us, we could all see where we were and we could see a journey that we were going down. And the team that worked with us, the Georges and the Traces of this world, they were just great. They were so easy to work with. Nothing was ever a stupid question, because we felt like we asked some stupid questions. It was so much easier for us to take stuff on like that. It was great.
Yeah, and I think we had the conversation beforehand. I think you were sort of saying, look, we've not got anything in place at the moment. So is it a big difference to get a brand new platform as opposed to if you had something before and you're just sort of migrating to another platform? And there's definitely pros and cons between each of them, but there are a lot of pros having nothing in place, because again, there's nothing that you're comparing everything to. You're starting from fresh. You don't have to sort of push across any legacy content that might be a bit boring or rubbish. You've got a blank slate essentially, which can always be a good thing.
I would say definitely was, and I think what your team also did a lot of myth busting for us, because there was a big misunderstanding about what, in terms of capability and technology, etc., we were going to need internally, because we don't know what we don't know. But what your process allowed us to appreciate was actually keep it simple. It doesn't need to be fancy SCORM. You don't need a full-on e-learning authoring tool. You've got a mobile phone. Here's some ideas of where you can go and get some imagery. Away you go, and that's what we did basically, and that's where we still are right this moment. But it's been the super experience for us.
Lovely, and we're going to jump into a demo of the platform in a minute, so we're going to show everyone some of the also like the exciting content that you're pushing out. Like you say, it's short, it's bite-sized, it gets the learner's attention, gives them the information that they need to do, and in a busy environment, they can then just go on with their jobs. So then just to ask that sort of question again about the RFP process and how many people you had involved in that, did you then have the same amount of people involved in the implementation process there?
We did in number, but we took a slightly different approach with that. And I think that was driven from the fact that we realised early doors that IT didn't need to necessarily be a part of that process. I think we had some early conversations that involved them, but your process quite clearly outlines the fact that they don't need to be involved necessarily. And so we opted to take it from an HR and an L&D perspective. And that's mainly because as two internal departments, we do work quite closely together, and there are synergies that sit between the two of us. So that's where we tended to sit it, with just my team and the team from HR as well. So it worked for us.
Lovely, wonderful. Well, I think without further ado, I think it'd be lovely if we sort of share my screen and I can open up the platform and we can sort of bring to life all of the hard work that you did to get to this place and launch the platform. So I think you sort of signed on the dotted line with us around about February time, was it thereabouts?
Yeah, it was somewhere like that, wasn't it, I think?
And then the implementation process took in the region of 12 weeks, was it, or maybe a little bit longer?
I think it was about that, if I'm right. I think it was, we originally were looking to go live at the beginning of May, and then we had an internal conflict with something else that was launching internally. So we took the choice to just step it back a couple of weeks to give the other project a little bit of air. So we launched in the middle of May, and I think that made it about a 12-week process. I think in theory we might have been ready to go a bit earlier, but we were appreciative of the last couple of weeks of scrambling around to make sure everything was ready to go.
So the platform's been live for a couple of months thereabouts.
A couple of months now, yeah.
And it's and it's thriving, excuse the pun. So I'm going to share my
Totally.
screen and switch across. I'm going to try and cancel that, move across to here, and here we are. So before we sort of start going through this, so just as a general overview, I know that you've highlighted at the start, so why don't you tell everyone sort of like who this platform's for and who's it reaching within Elior?
Okay, so we've got around 2,000 users in the platform, and the audience is our head office based population, so people that work in our support service departments, but it's also all of our individual site managers. In some of our larger sites, that also includes heads of department and head chefs. So just under 2,000 users in the platform at the moment. And that was done typically because they were the kind of people that would have come through the face-to-face learning that we would have previously offered through the academy.
And this platform is, although you do have areas where it is sort of mandatory stuff that you have to do, it's not typically used for mandatory. It's more for the self-directed training and allowing learners to search and explore subjects which will improve them within their roles or specifically within leadership and management, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a totally different third-party platform for all of the compliance learning. The purpose behind digitizing and making available to everybody and having more accessibility around that leadership management development was just that. You know, as an organization in hospitality, it's tough to recruit. And actually what we do like to do is grow our own as much as possible. And we're always on the move to internally develop and promote people. And what we weren't able to do was reach everybody before, because there will always be people for whom attending a classroom, it's out the question, it's not practical, it's not possible, or I just don't want to because it's not my thing. And so what we were seeing was almost a two-tier type of management structure. You've got those that can come and will get the benefit of a face-to-face, but then equally there's an awful lot of people that can't. And so what we were wanting to achieve from this was to move away from that face-to-face and give people the opportunity to develop themselves, but make sure everybody gets that same opportunity. So it doesn't matter whether you are the only person that works in that unit or whether you lead a team of 50 people, you've all got access to the same platform and the same collateral. You all get to develop the same way that way.
Perfect, sounds wonderful. And obviously it's a great opportunity, giving people that now they've not got as much opportunity to go to those face-to-face events. They can just access this as and when they need to, and it's really good that you're giving your learners that opportunity to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a very quick overview for those who may get my words out, a very quick overview for those who may never have seen Thrive before, you might not know what Thrive is. So Thrive is a learning experience platform, as Wendy quite rightly said. There's lots of acronyms going around in the industry about what an LMS, LXP, LRS, all that stuff is. So to break it down into sort of its core of what Thrive is. So Thrive has the core capabilities of a learning management system. So we can assign the mandatory content to learners. There's lots of different types of contents that we can have, from SCORM to PDFs to videos or pathways. We can track and report on everything. So we've tick the box from an LMS point of view, but what we've then weaved in between those functionalities are the more experiential and social side of things. So for every learner, it's a completely personalized experience based on their audiences, their skills, their interests. Learners can share their own content. So we'll talk a little bit more about user-generated content in a moment, how that's being utilized. Learners can add comments, they can communicate with one another. So it's almost taking the core capabilities of an LMS and just been enhancing that and having a social aspect on that, but making it completely personalized for each individual. So we're on the homepage of your platform here now, and the homepage is the main area where we're sort of delivering almost sort of pockets or front windows of subjects to learners throughout your organization. And as Wendy will say, we worked closely with you during the implementation process to create this homepage, which is specific for you and specific for your individual learners. What was that process like, Wendy, in terms of sort of building this homepage?
It was actually quite straightforward, to be honest with you, Will. It's relatively easy to put together, despite the fact that when we opened it up, it was a lunar landscape with nothing in it. We quite quickly realised how easy it was to put the components together. We were fairly clear from the outset how we wanted it to look. We think we know our audience, and we think we had a fairly good handle on what the learners or what our managers would want to see from a platform when they landed on it. So it was with that in mind that we put the different components together, because there is a degree of flexibility in the background about the look and feel and what order they sit on that landing page. We can move things around as we see fit, but it's what we've seen so far has worked really, really well for us.
Absolutely. So what we'll do now is actually we'll sort of on the vein of that conversation, we'll have a talk through about some of the stuff that you're using to deliver on the homepage. So we'll skip over this campaign banner for a second because I want to touch on that in a moment. But essentially what we're able to do on Thrive's homepage is create these blocks. So these blocks, for those who aren't aware, you can rename them, you can reshape them, resize them, do whatever you want to, and essentially pull through different contents to surface to the learners. So just talking through a few of these, Wendy. So we've got your to-do list here. We can see that these are mandatory. I'm sorry, I'm a bit overdue on one of them, but I've got a few days on the others. So what's this for?
Yeah, so mandatory. We don't in the L&D team. We don't sit with direct responsibility for the mandatory compliance learning. But what we always know is there are things that we would like our site managers to either do or be aware of or have sight of, or to support them in their day-to-day jobs. So we wanted a feature that we want to call it your to-do list. And this is where anything that the company would like our managers to look at gets pushed to. So this is where we assign content. So that we called it your to-do list because we didn't want to call it mandatory learning, because it didn't feel that was appropriate for us. So that's the stuff that we want our managers to know. There's some awareness for Natasha's Law, survey results have just come out. There's some right to work changes, things that managers need to be aware of out in the business. That's what that particular component does.
Wonderful. And again, it helps you because it's a bit more of the stuff that they need to be doing. You're able to just say, well, you're going overdue on this content, you need to get it done, or well, you need to do this in the next 9 days. So it gives you that security and that sort of bit more comfort that you know that people are going to be doing that.
Yeah, and we can track that as well, which is really helpful, as you've already said.
Yeah, lovely. And then on the flip side of things, you've got a component here which is called recommended for you. So it's not mandatory, we don't have to do it in a due date. This is just stuff which is of interest to a learner, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've selected in advance as you sign into the platform, you've told the platform what your interests are, you've told it what you're skilled at, and on the back of that, the algorithms are pushing the content to you that's been tagged in that way. And so what that looks like for every single one of our users is different, and that's the bit that was really important for us, because we wanted to make the user realize they've got control over what they saw, and they can consume what they want to consume when they choose to do so. So what's being pushed out to the learner is a different thing in every single one of their sites. In every single user's case, it will look different.
Exactly right. Couldn't have said it better myself. And then we've got things like what's new and how long have you got. So what's new, is this just sort of like the latest stuff that's been
literally
uploaded?
it's literally everything that goes through. So you can see there's some auto curated content in there, there's some content that we've put up, and that for me is just an opportunity for the user to broaden their horizons a little bit. They might have thought they had interests and skills in certain key areas, but actually what we can do here is allow them to scroll through and see everything. So again, it can pull them off in a different direction, which I think is all part of broadening your mind and learning other different things. So that's that what's new feed.
And yeah, as you said, you're pulling through content automatically from providers like Anders Pink and Get Abstract. So I assume that helps with the automation of keeping the platform populated. You almost don't have to lift a finger for that type of stuff, do you?
No, we don't. It just comes through automatically, and it certainly helped from our perspective because we didn't have anything that we'd previously created. Although it was interesting once we started thinking about what we could put on there, how much stuff we did have.
Right.
We'd got, or we didn't realize we'd got. So we did have quite a bit of content to upload ourselves, but the auto curation certainly add to the breadth. And I think it also means that the viewer gets to see things that aren't necessarily just from Elior. It gives them that visibility of wider leadership management style content. So it provides more breadth to their knowledge bank.
Wonderful. And then just very quickly, sort of tailing off this homepage. So we've got how long have you got, which is quite self-explanatory, but it's
Yeah.
a really good feature. It
Yeah.
allows the learners to consume content in the time that they've got available. So
Yeah.
it's sort of that just-in-time learning piece, and giving them what they want in the time they have. Is this again sort of just so specific for a particular learner, or is this focused on a certain area?
No, this is again filtered on your interests, actually. So you can select the time zones, and given that you've already flagged what it is that you're interested in, it will push the content to you. This bit really wins for us because we're always time poor. You know, in our industry, the pressure's on for the next service point or the next call or whatever it might be. And so if you are in a position to play to that and say, listen, if you've only got 5 minutes, there's still something you can take the benefit of. We really wanted to have that component in on our homepage.
Wonderful. And then finally, we've got people to meet. So again, this is a piece of functionality within Thrive. When we were building Thrive, we of course saw an amazing opportunity to be able to connect people with content within your organizations. But we saw a really nice opportunity to connect people with other people. So this, as you may say, Wendy, is an opportunity to understand just more people within the company.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got people following people. And people connecting with people through the medium of this people to meet. You can filter it on collaborators, which are people that you share a skill with, or you can filter it on experts, which are people that have a skill that you're looking to develop yourself. And that allows you to follow, and you can then see what the individual's commenting on, posting, and so on and so forth, and just generates a little bit of that peer-to-peer learning that you might get in the coffee chat.
Mm-hmm. And there you are, front and center, one of the experts.
Yeah.
Lovely. No comment. Brill. So that's the homepage. And as I mentioned, every one of our customers has a completely different homepage. You can utilize those blocks to deliver the content that you want to deliver to your learners. And at the very top here, we've got something which is called a campaign banner, which is slightly different to the blocks underneath there. So campaign banners are used to sort of highlight certain initiatives that are happening either within your organization or that are just happening within the world. So quite rightly, you've got one at the moment which is sort of talking about the new normal, getting back into normal way of living. So the learners click the campaign and they have some associated content.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing there, Wendy.
So this was really driven around the fact that, as we all know, the restrictions started to become more relaxed on the 19th of July. And it also saw the return to the office, which for us as a contract catering organisation has the potential to mean that we've got more customers coming through our workplaces, as well as those of us that have an office-based role moving slowly starting to go back into the offices. And that brings with it a whole host of nerves, a whole host of apprehension, very different emotions and feelings. And so we wanted to make sure that the content that we pushed out over the course of the last couple of weeks started to reflect the fact that it's okay to feel a little bit unnerved. It's okay to feel anxious. Let's have a think about what that might need to look like and how we can all adapt to the new normal.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what else have you got sort of planned on the campaign? So it's with the campaigns, as you can see, everyone, it's over a certain date range. We can have certain campaigns for different audiences. So if you wanted your leaders to see something different to your managers, you can do. And then from the 1st of August, it switches on to a new one. So what have you done previously and what have you got planned with the campaigns?
So in terms of campaigns previously, we've done gender diversity. We did quite a bit of focus in the first 4 weeks about the Welcome to Thrive, how to make the most of the platform. We shared some tips and tricks for adding content, commenting, sharing, all that kind of things, just to try and raise awareness about how to make use of the platform. We've got a piece coming up over the next couple of weeks around recognition and saying thank you to your team and in the workplace, which will align quite naturally with the launch of our internal awards nomination scheme. So that will tie in. And then we've got some content planned for later in the year around modern slavery. We know that the Natasha's Law piece will be quite pertinent for us as an industry. So whilst we won't be pushing out the formal learning content, we'll be doing an awareness campaign around that. And we've kind of adopted a little bit of an agile approach to our campaigns so that we can be quite closely aligned with what the business is doing at that moment in time. So we kind of have some key dates in the calendar that we need to be aware of, but equally we'll often just react a little bit closer to the point of need so that we make sure we're aligned with what the latest comms are that's coming out from centre.
Awesome. And I think you'll probably agree with me by saying that L&D teams or people within the L&D industry have to wear many hats. And I think that's an example of the marketing hat or the communications hat that you'll have to sort of put on. And this sort of helps with that. It helps you communicate with the organization based on things that they may never have thought to sort of explore before, or just sort of put something in front of them and allow them to consume a piece of content or explore a subject which they may never have thought to explore before. So some of those examples are really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
So we have got a couple of questions. So just let everyone know that I'm going to hold off until the end to answer those. So we're going to go through a few more bits and bobs and we will answer those questions. So thank you to everyone who's asked a question so far. So please pop them in there. And then when we finish walking through the platform, we'll be able to address those afterwards. So what I want to quickly do now is we've talked a lot about how you're delivering content on the homepage and through these campaigns. And I very quickly showed you a video there. But I'd just like to quickly explore some of the types of contents that you're using, Wendy, to deliver out to your learners. So I've previously pinned a few pieces of content just to highlight those for people. So we'll go on to this video here, because this is a prime example of a short, sharp, snappy video that you're pushing out to learners. And this is quite a lot of the content you're using is similar to this. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And if I'm really honest with you, it was a style that we'd not really thought of using before, but it came on the back of some of the collateral that your team allowed us to make use of in the launch campaign. And it struck a chord and we went, oh, heck, crikey, we've created a monster now. We need to keep up with this. But these short, impactful videos are really landing well with the user audience. And this one particularly is around a scheme that we're launching internally. And the comments underneath, that 51 comments, that's people within the organisation commenting and really appreciating it. And we've even got key members of the HR team and key members of the leadership team in Elior even acknowledging and commenting on the people that have made the time to make some reference to the clip. So really powerful way of engaging with senior people in the organisation as well.
And that's immediate feedback as well, isn't it? This is a new strategy for you. They've never had this type of platform before. So you're going out with this, not really knowing exactly if they're going to like it or not. So you've started off with these sort of short, snappy pieces of content, and people are putting comments on straight away saying how amazing it is and how well it's going down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's helped some of the other internal departments appreciate how they could communicate differently as well. You know, we've seen some of the comments that have come on some of the videos, and I've been able to share them with other departments and say, there's real comments here that would help. Let's talk about what that could look like from your department and how we can play to that, because people are clearly watching and listening and engaging with it. So make the most of it.
Amazing. And you've had sort of different people from within the organization say, I know this platform's only for a certain amount of people, but can we try and extend that to some more people?
Don't. I think there's two most frequently asked questions, and one of them is, when is it going to be available for me, and when can we have it for X, and how about it for Y? And I have to keep managing expectations, because there is a journey. We do need to go on a journey, and it's only fair that we do what we intended to do from the outset. So all in good time.
That's fair enough. Patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
This other piece of content that I wanted to highlight was the type of e-learning content that you're pushing out. And this isn't, I think I'm just going to quickly mute that because I can hear it quite loud in my ear. This is an example of Thrive's off-the-shelf micro-learning catalogue content. And this is of a similar vein to the way that you want to push out content, because they can be completed in no more than 10 minutes. Again, they're short, sharp, they're punchy. They give the learner what they need in the time, and then they can go on with their jobs. And our content comes as part of the solution. We've got 180 modules at the moment, but we're actually sort of reshaping our catalogue at the moment and sort of reforming it in the way of a content club. And it's moving from 180 resources up to 500 by the end of this year, 1,000 by the end of next year. We're introducing pre-built pathways, so you can just drag and drop pathways on there. We're going to be running monthly webinars and quarterly reviews with all of our customers who have this content to make sure that it's being used in the correct manner, and you're using it to sort of generate results like you're doing.
Yeah.
So how have you found having that as a base of content to work from when you implement a learning platform?
No, great, actually. As you know, we had nothing. So we were keen to take advantage of whatever you had to support us with that, with the articulations, but certainly with the e-learning content. And I think we've probably got the vast majority of your collateral on the platform in some way, shape or form, because it just adds to the variety. I'm always minded that we don't want to saturate one particular content type versus another, so that people get a broad spectrum of type of content, so we don't overkill either e-learning or video or anything like that, because one of the advantages of the platform is the diversity of collateral that you can upload there. So let's take advantage of that. But your e-learning content, as you say, it hits the mark. It's short, it's punchy, it does exactly what it needs to do.
Lovely, glad to hear it. And then finally, just to sort of tie up that conversation of content, we also have the pathway functionality, which you're utilizing really well, which, as you know, is a collection of different pieces of content from the platform. You've just sort of we've allowed you to structure it in a bit more of a linear fashion. So sort of do this, then this, then this, then this. So this allows for sort of more of the formal learning, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And this is something that this was a great project that was paper-based before Thrive came along, and we digitized it completely and pushed it out as a pathway. So it went out as a pathway to all of our site managers, and all it was an opportunity for them to be clear on what are the business expectations we've got of you in terms of completing your weekly paperwork, submitting your returns to the office, but just condensed and pushed into one place. And we just put it together as a pathway so that it was easier for them to navigate through. And it just makes it a little bit easier for people to see. It's simpler to deploy. And then if they wanted to go back and revisit the individual pieces of resource, they're also behind a tile on the Explore page. So it just worked in our favour to do something like this. It was really beneficial.
Perfect, lovely. So we're going to get onto the Q&A in a couple of minutes. There's a couple of things I do want to highlight though first. So any questions, again, pop them in the chat and we'll answer those as soon as possible. The item I'd like to discuss now is around user-generated content. So that might generate a few questions itself, because some people are for user-generated content, some people aren't. But you opted to allow user-generated content on this platform, haven't you? And again, it's for leaders and managers within the organization. So hopefully relatively trustworthy people. But yeah, what was your mindset around UGC?
My mindset was completely and utterly, if I've got an opportunity to allow people to share component and resources, then why would I not? You know, why do we in the L&D team have to be the fonts of all knowledge when we've probably got people that have got better ideas and better understanding of some of the frontline challenges working for us out in the business? And I'll be honest with you, Will, there was an awful lot of nervousness around this flexibility. And there were those questions that said, well, what will happen? Will we be watching it? Can we monitor it? Can we keep an eye on it? And, you know, we still check every day. Someone from the team will always jump onto content to just make sure that anything that's been added is appropriate and relevant. But I will hand on heart be honest with you, we've had no problems whatsoever. People can see what the platform is for. They can see what it's useful for. And we've got lots of contributors now from out in the field, people sharing articles, people sharing short clips. And some of the content that's been most widely viewed has come from someone in the business who's just uploaded a link to a TED Talks or something like that. And it's got really powerful traction.
Yeah, I was having a quick snoop on your analytics earlier, and you can see on the analytics, we can see sort of the engagement between user-generated content and content which has been endorsed by the organization. And it's not quite 50-50, but it's not far off the amount that people are actually accessing user-generated content. So it's gone down really well. And I think particularly part of that is because of the audience of the managers and the leaders within the organization, because everyone's posting out some really good stuff. And I'm logged in as an admin. So as an admin, I could post all of these types of contents. I won't, because it's not my platform, but as an admin, you can do. But for your people, for your sort of end users, the learners that aren't admins, they just have a limited view of this. They can just upload files, links, and is it questions?
Yeah,
right?
files, links, articles, and questions. So we've got question functionality used quite a lot. A number of people have asked questions on the platform. Files and links are the most popular ones, though people will share articles and clips and videos. So they're the most popular ones.
Lovely, wonderful. And then very quickly before we jump into the Q&A, I did want to highlight this explore area because, well, A, it just looks lovely, and B, it's a really nice way of offering almost sort of like a library of everything that you've got. I know we've got the homepage where you can surface pockets of subjects which learners can delve into straight away, but this is more of a traditional learning library. So if your learners want to explore a subject in a bit more detail, they can come into here and do that. Isn't that right, Wendy?
That's correct. Yeah, we put a lot of the collateral, for example, some of the content that we might have delivered face to face, we broke it down into subjects and we put it into this particular area of the platform. But equally, some of the collateral that we might have housed elsewhere on our communications platform, we've moved on to here now because it feels a more natural home for it. And as you say, Will, it just means that we can direct people to where they need to go to without having to spend hours trying to work out what the link might be to that particular aspect of a different platform. Here it's all under one roof, and they can go back to it and refer to it again rather than losing something because it disappeared around in a feed.
Exactly. So you've got those sort of different layers of subjects, and people can just come into here and find content which is of that subject so they can understand that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah,
and like
absolutely.
You say, it's perfect for that audience and being able to just explore subjects which they might not have had the opportunity to explore before, unless it was sort of arranging a face-to-face meeting and waiting 2 weeks until you have to go to the event and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And actually, I don't need that now. I need it now because my problem is now, and I need to stop it now, or I've got my conversation now, and I need some tips how. And yeah, it needs to be accessible right when I need it.
Lovely. And then finally, I did want to highlight this notifications area because, again, you're just about 2 months into using the platform, and I've got a login myself to this platform, and every week at least I see notifications coming through to highlight new and fresh content that's coming onto the platform. So it's a really good pull for me. I don't even work with an Elior. It's a nice pull for me to go into there and have a look at what's going on. But yeah, this is an area that some people have asked whether you should keep it or turn it off, but you very much want to keep notifications on for the time being, don't you?
We do. I think I don't think anybody quite realised, if I'm honest, at the launch how not noisy they would be, but for every notification that you get in your notification section, it generates an email. And I think that was where there were some people going, wow, this is a lot of email traffic. How do we deal with that? So we've done some work on that, and we've created some content on how to make the best of your inbox so the notifications don't get in your way. But when we looked at the data, and the data told us that over 50% of the traction to the platform was driven through notifications, there's no way I'm switching them off, because if that's what's pulling people in the first instance, then happy days. Because once they're in, you can see where they go next based on the analytics that tell me what's the next thing they go to. It's related content or it's a search, so it's pulling them in and then it's sending them off in the directions they would like to go in. So they're staying for the time being. Thank you.
Perfect. Stand strong. I think, again,
absolutely,
when you've not had something previously and they've got this whole new platform, and I know it's very similar to how learners are consuming content in their personal life, like on an Instagram or a LinkedIn. It is similar, but it's different because it's in the workplace. So having that pull and getting them there, even if it's for the first few months or year, just to get them used to coming to the platform and this is their go-to place. And you might want to turn it off after 6 months or for a few months, or just keep it on forever. But if it's working, if it's not broke, absolutely don't fix it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So that's sort of like the end of the tour of the platform that I wanted to show. More than happy to show anything else that anybody else wants to see. But there are a few questions, so really keen to tackle those now. But again, any other questions, please do let us know. So the first question that we've got is from Lorna. So Lorna has recently gone ahead with Thrive, and so she's in the implementation process at the moment with Little Dot Studios. And she says, she's loving the workshops with the team. Wendy, what tips or advice would you give to launch the LXP?
Communication. Have a really good, strong communication plan. We started about 4 weeks out from go live, and we dropped some really punchy, loud, noisy videos into people's inbox to tell them that change was happening. And we organised. We'd got a 4 week T-minus 4 week campaign. So we just kept drip feeding things in on a regular basis over that 4 week to do the countdown. So by the time the platform went live, people were really ready to see what it was that we were shouting about. We were trying to keep as much of our powder dry as possible to build the anticipation as well. That worked for us.
I hope that answers your question, Lorna. Next one we've got here is from Anonymous, so it's a little bit suspicious, but we'll go ahead with it. What does your L&D team look like? How many and what roles?
So the L&D team, says Wendy, quickly counting up ahead, there are 6 of us. I've got 3 learning and development business partners. There's myself. I've got a learning and development advisor who deals with all the administration and a lot of the back office work. And then I've got a L&D culinary lead, because we're a foodie industry. I've got a guy who leads on all the culinary elements. So there's 6 of us in the team.
Lovely. And then we've got a question from Gareth. Wendy, would you say campaigns are your #1 engagement tactic?
They are, but they're not, in a strange kind of way. My #1 engagement tactic, I think, probably is something we've called Thrive Thursday. And that consists of a hard mail drop that we do to every Thrive user every Thursday, which either will pull them into a piece of content that's part of a campaign that week, or it will signpost them to just a particularly strategic piece of content. That's what we find is working the most for us.
Nice, lovely. And Gareth, if you do want to, we've got loads of analytics within the platform to give you an indication of where users are coming from, the most active times on the platform, the most popular pieces of content. So if you want to take some time with us another day to go into that in a bit more detail, more than happy to help. So just drop us a line. Next question is about user-generated content. So I thought something had come up here. Was it difficult to get learners posting, Wendy, in terms of
it was a slow burn? I think I'll be really honest, it was a slow burn. What we do have are 1 or 2 individuals in the organisation who are comfortable doing that kind of thing, and they kind of led the way. And interestingly, one of the things that I did as part of one of our Thrive Thursday campaigns was a little bit of a shout out to those that had shared the user generated content. So we have an internal recognition scheme called You Made a Difference. You can issue virtual vouchers to say thank you very much. So as part of Thrive Thursday, I did a little shout out to all those that had shared content and gave them all a virtual voucher. And I think there was an element of, oh, it's okay now, it's fine, we can share. And that seemed to traction a bit more activity. And we're actually actively encouraging it ourselves now. What we tend to find as time goes on, we get that email that goes, could you just upload this to Thrive for me? And we go, no, you can do it yourself, because you don't need me, because otherwise all that happens is my face ends up at the bottom of it and they're like, again. So we do actively try and encourage people to upload their own content now as well.
Lovely. And the conversation that we had the other day, Wendy, so for the sake of people on the call, we're actually introducing a new persona almost, or new sort of admin level within the platform, which allows people within Elior, for example, a group of people to post on behalf of a persona. So if you wanted a group of people posting on behalf of leadership or management or culinary, you can say to those people, they have the access, and the persona will post on behalf of that. So it's, again, extending the reach out and sort of spreading spreading the workload that you've got to do, Wendy, amongst everyone else within the organization, just giving them the rights and tools to upload that content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question here, we've got a few to get through, so we'll try and get through them. How has it been received by managers in general?
Amazingly well. We were lucky, and I've said this to Will and a lot of the team in Thrive, if anything, COVID has probably helped us, because the move away from face-to-face anything over the course of the pandemic meant that digital technology was much more widely accepted. So by the time we came to launch Thrive in May of this year, it was 16 months since anybody had had any form of face-to-face learning, and they quickly realised digital tech was the way forward. So some of the comments we've had are, we should have done it years ago. This is the best thing Elior have launched in an awfully long time. And just the engagement level tells me all I need to know. So it's been incredibly well received.
Lovely, that's really good to hear. And another question here, which I think we've sort of already answered in terms of sort of like, what's your #1 engagement tip? So I think the Thursday email drop is
Yeah.
a thing that gets them into the platform, but the fact
Yeah.
that when they're in the platform, they've got all of that personalized content, they've got recommended content. So although you're having a little bit of a pull to get them into the site because they're not used to this way of learning, there's all those triggers in there that just help them explore that even further. Would you say that's about right?
I would agree with that. There was a lot of there was still nervousness. Although there were lots of people that loved it, there were also people that, well, we haven't got time, and so on and so forth. And the biggest hurdle they needed to get over was to go in, because there's a perception and then there's the reality of what it actually is. And if we could just get them through the front door of the platform, once they were in there, we're like, okay, wow, this is much better. Thank you very much. And away they went. So that was where some of the hurdles, but that's where the team and I all came into it. You're talking to your stakeholders, engaging in conversations, show and tells, how is it going, a little bit of data analytics, let's talk about how your team are working with the platform and what can you see, and just really encouraging people to draw down on the analytics themselves as well, so they can see how their users are engaging with it.
Brilliant. And then a follow-up question from Gareth again. So he said, that sounds cool. So obviously a good answer. What's the most popular content formats you see?
Video, without doubt. Video is the most popular content format. I think it's because actually everybody could do it. I was asking the question of some of our guys earlier this week if they could do me some selfie videos for some content that we need to put together for internal parts of the business. And it's just literally going, just use your phone. Honestly, it's fine. There's no dark art to this. Just use your mobile phone. Everybody does it for Instagram and Facebook. So it's just the same principle. Do that, talking headshot, upload, and away we go. So video wins for us every time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's something that we definitely advocate during the implementation process and ever. It's the content that's just the most relatable, isn't it? If you can pick up a phone, record yourself doing something or sharing something, people can just relate to it instantly.
Yeah.
Another follow-up question from Lorna: how did you identify the UGCers and get them on board? But everyone within the organization can upload content.
Yes, they can. Yeah, they can. But we didn't name anybody specifically, Lorna. I think there were, L&D team had done a lot of uploading themselves naturally as we were building the platform. We also took the benefit of some of the HR team uploading things. And because our HR director sits on the leadership team, he was one of those that was uploading content. And because some of the HR team had been involved in the process, they too kicked it off. And I think once the users could see that these people were uploading content and they'd appreciated that they could too, once you've got one through the door, that's the best way of doing it. Once one goes, the others go, oh, okay, we can do this, and away they go.
Wonderful, thank you. And then the final question, so if anyone's got any more questions, feel free to pop them on. We've got a few minutes left. Bit of a tough one possibly. What was the biggest challenge introducing the LXP, and how did you overcome it?
I would imagine, if I was to be really honest and rewind the clock, the biggest challenge was to change the mindset of the organisation, in the sense that they got very, very used to us being in a room and delivering learning face to face. So for us, it's been switching people's mindsets. We've done a lot of groundwork on that before we got to the pandemic. And I think the pandemic made people appreciate what technology could do for us. So from May of this year, when it arrived, people were a little bit more open to what digital technology could do for us. Again, I'm very fortunate to have a really supportive HR director, sits on the leadership team. This was part of the strategy that we had as an organisation from an L&D perspective, and that really helped us get leadership traction. But early doors selling it into the leadership team, early doors conversation to talk to them about what we were looking to achieve and how this would really help was also part of that persuasive tactic.
Lovely, thank you very much for that. Okay, I think that might be all the questions, unless anyone wants to sneak one in now. But yeah, just want to say thank you so much, Wendy. It was a really lovely insight into how you're sort of helping all these leaders and managers within the organization, and hopefully that's going to be growing, and maybe we can come back in 6 months and a year's time and see how much that's grown. So thank you to you, and thank you to everyone who's joined today. I don't know if Cassie wants me to do a bit of housekeeping at the end. If she does, I've absolutely forgotten it, so we're okay.
No worries, Will. That's why I'm here. Yes, thank you so much, Wendy, for today. And Will, thank you also for hosting today's session. It was a really informative session. We're already getting some thank yous in the chat already. So yeah, the recording will be available in the next few days. So we'll make sure to email it out to everyone, and we'll definitely get you a copy over, Wendy, so you can share it internally. I'm sure a lot of your team will love to see it. Our next live session is going to be in August, and it's going to be all about how to create compelling learning campaigns. So keep an eye out. We're going to be announcing the date in the next week or so, and announcing who that's going to be with, and who's going to be hosting it as well. In the meantime, if anyone's got any more questions, please feel free to drop us a message. You can find both Wendy and Will on LinkedIn as well. Big presences, both of them. So that's William Taus and Wendy Elliott. And yeah, all that's left to say is thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, Wendy and Will, for hosting today's session.
Pleasure. Thanks for asking me, guys.
Thanks, Wendy. Speak to you all soon.
Thank you both. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.